666. What an amazing trip. Drag racing down Route 66 and road tripping for 8 days, 6 different tracks. Really a once in a lifetime event. I'm so glad I got to participate. The event started for me Thursday morning with a 200-mile drive down to Ozark Raceway Park, Springfield, Missouri. Got through tech, found a couple of blown fuses. A sign of things to come? We'll see. Got through tech and got ready to make a test pass. This will be my first run on the car after rebuilding the engine and transmission after damaging both of them in 6 summers. So this is really just a shakedown to make sure everything was still okay. So we went 764 on the test run, a lot slower than the car normally runs, but if you listen to it going on the track, you might have noticed that it didn't shift at all because it launched in high gear. Probably not great for a fresh transmission, but we called it okay for a test pass. So we made the first run in the car. It went 734 in the 8th at 95 miles an hour. It's a little bit slower than it's been before, but pulling into my fans quit, and it was running about 210, 215 degrees at the starting line. So I think that probably had something to do with it. I also forgot to take the air filter off, which I'm sure isn't helping. So that's my excuses for today. 734 is good enough. We're gonna put the old tires back on and cover up the exhaust, and we're gonna get back on the road. So we are all packed up now. We got the street tires back on, got the exhaust plug back up. Did find the problem with the fans, found a couple blown fuses. Did what you're supposed to do when you blow a fuse. You just put in a bigger one and then hope that solves the problem. That did not solve the problem. But we're packed up. We're getting ready to leave Ozark Raceway Park here and get on the road to MoKan. The thing we figured out pretty quick on this event was that while the drag racing was cool, the real star was the drives and the checkpoints that we were going to get to see along the way. There's so many cool things going down Route 66 that you can't possibly stop and see all of them, but we stopped at as many of them as we could, even ones that weren't official checkpoints. This was the first of many sections that we drove on of actual, original, unrestored sections of Route 66. These roads were super rough, and a lot of cars had trouble going down them. Thankfully, I've got a lot of ground clearance, and I've got pretty soft suspension, so I didn't have too much trouble. But there were a lot of oil pans that were killed, and probably a lot of flat tires, and steering and suspension parts. I got a lot of fatigue wear on this event. This old motel was a great example of something that wasn't an official checkpoint, but we had to stop at anyways. Just check this thing out. It is so cool to see the way things used to be built with such style and craftsmanship. You don't see buildings built like this anymore. Old school train station. This was one of the waiting rooms for the trains. Leave now. We are packing up. Eric's putting the street tires back on the back. We got street tires on the front. We got the exhaust covered up. Car did okay today. We made 4 runs today. First 2 runs we were having an issue with it running out of fuel. about halfway through the track. We did some different things, tried some different stuff. Went out and made a 7:33 run, which was pretty good, better than what we did yesterday. We fixed some electrical stuff we had going on with the car while we were waiting for some of our buddies to get ready. Replaced the ignition switch on the column.
Turns out the ignition switch wasn't the problem, but more on that later.
And then we were headed up to the tower to turn in our time slip and noticed that the lanes were totally empty. One of our buddies had just ran. He was going to make another rip. I told him to hold on. I sprinted back to my car, got in, lined up against him, made a rip side by side all the way down the track. He ended up treating me by 2/10 and then running a tenth slower than me, so he actually beat me by a tenth. Yeah, it was a great race side by side, and I ran a 7:21, which was, a little over a tenth better than what I had ran before. So then we turned that slip in, and now we're getting the car turned around, and we're going to hit the road to Tulsa. All right, we are day 3. 666. We're at Tulsa Raceway Park. Got the car changed over this morning. Skinnies, slicks, exhaust opened up, changed the airbags in the back, and we went ahead and threw a couple of jets in the secondaries here as well. It seemed to like the extra fuel in the primaries yesterday, and so we threw some extra in the secondaries too. It's running pretty good on the street, so I don't want to throw too many more jets in the primaries and risk messing up my highway cruising tune. So we threw a couple extra in the secondaries this morning. We'll see if she likes that. We got nice cool air here today. It's early in the morning, got a nice breeze, so hopefully we'll get some good times out of the car today. All right, so we're packing up at Tulsa. We made 4 runs again this morning, and we're having some issues with the engine, like bogging down on the launch. We played with the accelerator pump a little bit on the carburetor. That didn't help at all. We checked a few things. We ended up checking timing and realized that it was down like 6 degrees on timing from where it normally runs. It normally runs like 36, 37 degrees of timing. It was down to about 30. We put 6 degrees back at timing in, put it back at 36, and it picked up 2/10 and 2 mile an hour.
That did not do anything to help the bogging, though.
So my mile an hour has been real consistent all week until now. So I'm thinking that it probably backed off the timing right away after I started running this engine, and it's probably been at 30 degrees all week. Because it's been running consistent 95 mile an hour. Now it just ran 97. So our current theory is that the plugs are probably loaded up. We richened up the fuel mixture yesterday and then drove a couple hundred miles, and we're thinking the plugs are probably just saturated and not able to burn all the fuel that gets dumped in this thing at the launch. This thing burns a lot of fuel right at the launch. So that's kind of our current theory. We don't want to pull the plugs out while the engine's real hot. We got a time that's pretty much in line with our other times, so and plus our crew that we've been rolling with over here, they're ready to go as well. They all got good times. So we're going to pack up, change. We got a long drive to get to Amarillo. So what we're probably going to do is keep driving on these plugs. And then whenever we get to Amarillo, we'll change it before the next race day and see if it helps at all. So that is it for today. Street time. had never been to Texas before this event, and one of the first things I noticed when we first rolled in was just how windy it was. And then while we were driving, I looked out and I saw all these giant fans off in the distance, and I guess it just gets that hot in Texas that they gotta have stuff like this. But boy howdy, I don't know if having it being this windy and dusty is any better than it being hot. So I realized this morning that I forgot to make a video when we were at Amarillo. We raced Amarillo 2 days ago. Just pretend like we're there today. It'll be fine. Car spun on first launch. Came back around, changed tire pressure, it spun again on the second one. Came back in the afternoon, put like 20 pounds of tire pressure in it, and it dead hooked. Went 741. It was a little slow because the altitude was about 6,000 or so by that point. But we got on the road and had a visitor, had to stop recording. This car, I don't know if just because it doesn't have a hood on it or what, but people love to stop and chat about it, and I don't mind talking to people. It's kind of fun. You know, you meet a lot of cool people at these events. Like this guy over there. We've been riding with him all week, and we just met him in the lunch line on the first day, and now we're friends. So that's how it goes. But yeah, we ended up turning in a 741 at Amarillo. The density altitude was like 6,000 something feet by the time we made a good pass and got a good launch. Everybody was down a 10th or 2 in Amarillo from what they ran the day before, so I actually jumped up, even though I turned in a slower time and slowed down my average a little bit. I jumped up 4 spots in the event, just because everybody else slowed down too.
I think it's required to dump over your toolbox at least once every event. By this point, I was pretty worn out. I asked Eric to take the wheel for a little bit so I could sightsee and just kind of relax for a little while. Who needs the interstate anyways when you can just do 70 on the back roads? was still driving at this point, but after watching Kyle's burnout, I felt the need to get behind the wheel and show him how it's done. And Eric, being the good friend that he is, was gracious enough to get out of the car and film. Old abandoned village or town or something. Number 1 and number 2 cars in the event right now. Close it up. It's like an old Chevelle back there. Cactuses. There's smoke from the weed on the road a little while ago. Morning. We are in Amarillo. Yeah, I meant to say Albuquerque. I had pretty much forgotten what day it was or where we were at this point. We had a 400 almost mile drive yesterday. We took some detours through some cool mountain roads, saw a lot of these other cars going through the mountains, saw some of them broke down on the mountain, and I see some of those that were broke down out here today, so it's good to see that they got fixed and made it out here. But I think the DA today is going to be around 6,000 feet as well. It's pretty cool this morning. We're going to run last today.
So hopefully they get some heat in the track before we get up there and it's not too slick. But we are converted over, we're ready to run. We're kind of just doing nut and bolt checks right now while we wait and working on some wiring again.
Remember earlier when I said our electrical problems still weren't fixed? Well, spoiler alert, they're not getting fixed today either.
So we'll get another update later on. Oh, we also did change the air filter after driving through Amarillo in the dust and the rain and everything like that. That filter was black as could be. You couldn't see through it. So we stopped at O'Reilly's and just bought the biggest air filter we could find. And we had to turn the lid upside down because my stud wasn't long enough to have the lid on the right way. So we just put it on backwards because this filter's an inch taller than my old one. And I didn't realize that when I bought it, but you know, that's how it goes. Well, this just goes to show in racing things don't always go like you want. In this case, about 60 feet into the run, my upper radiator hose blew off and I had to pull over to the side of the track and get towed off. Thankfully, the only thing that was actually wrong was the hose, and there was nothing else broken in the car. I've put the hose back on, tightened up the hose clamp, and filled it back up with water, and we were on the road. If you want to see a good video of that hose blowing off, Morgan Evans was in the lane next to me there, and she caught that video, and it's on her Instagram page if you want to go check it out. But that little maneuver of blowing that radiator hose off and having to fix that cost us a little bit of time. I also had to drop Eric off at the airport so he could fly home after we left the track that day, and then run into town and get some supplies like, you know, a spare radiator hose and some heavy-duty hose clamps. So by the time I got back to the track and started the actual route, I was way behind a lot of the other racers, so I really had to put the hammer down and make up time to catch up to the rest of my group. I did have to slow down and get a shot of this awesome double rainbow coming into this little town here. Crazy just happened. You may notice my dome light is on in my car. This dome light has not worked in the 4 years that I've owned this car. I crossed the city limits into Roswell, New Mexico, and the dome light comes on and it won't shut off. Aliens, man. was it for racing. After I got done making my last pass in Roswell, I hit the road right away. I had 925 miles to get home, and it was Friday, and I had to be at work on Monday. With all the problems I'd had with the car, I really wanted to get on the road so that if I had any problems, I would have time to fix them on the way home. So you can see that last picture. I ended up at a truck stop at about 11 o'clock at night somewhere along the Texas-New Mexico border, duct taping some semi-truck trailer lights to the back of my car and just hot wiring them directly to the battery so that I could keep driving through the night. Other than that, I had no more problems on the rest of the way home. The car did great. I was running 70, 75 miles an hour most of the way down the interstate, just stopping about every 150 miles for gas, until I pulled off here to make it to my home right off of Route 66. And that's a wrap on 666. It was an awesome adventure. Met a lot of cool people, made some new friends. Got to spend a lot of time in this girl here. I'm getting familiar with her. She did great, especially with having a brand new engine and transmission for the event. I mean, it still had brake-in oil on it the first race day. But yeah, hope you liked watching the video, and stay tuned for the next one.